Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into a truly mind-bending idea, one that connects the simplest living cell to the incredible complexity of our own minds. It's a journey that starts with the basic question of what it means to be alive and ends with the very nature of meaning itself. All right, let's kick things off with a huge question. This is a puzzle that's kept thinkers up at night for centuries. How does the raw physical stuff of life, a cell, a basic organism, somehow give rise to a world of meaning, of thoughts and feelings? What's the secret ingredient that bridges the gap between simply being alive and actually being aware?
So, to even begin to answer that, we've got to start with a pretty revolutionary concept about what life even is, at its most fundamental level.
And that concept is called autopoiesis. And believe me, it was a total game changer. Think about a living cell. See, it isn't just some bag of chemicals, right? It's this dynamic, self-building factory. It's constantly producing its own outer wall, its own membrane, which in turn holds all the machinery together. The best analogy is a whirlpool in a river. It's a distinct pattern that's constantly remaking itself from the very stuff flowing through it.
So what you get is this perfect, closed loop. The parts create the whole, and the whole is absolutely necessary to keep producing the parts. And this constant process of self-creation, well, that's the very definition of a living thing. It's what makes a cell different from, say, a rock. It's a really beautiful, elegant theory, isn't it? But there's a problem, a big one, especially when we try to use it to explain how an organism actually thinks or behaves. Okay, so here's the issue. The classic theory of autopoiesis, it's totally black and white. It's all or nothing. A system is either pulling off this self-production trick, meaning it's alive, or it fails and it's dead. But that's not how you and I experience the world, is it? Of course not. We exist on this whole spectrum of states. We can be healthy or sick, safe or in danger.
And this raises a massive question. If a system can only be on or off, how in the world does it make choices? How would it ever know that doing this brings it closer to the off switch, while doing that keeps it safe? The original theory just doesn't give it any reason to prefer being healthy over being sick. There's no why.
Well, the answer, it turns out, is to add a whole new layer to this theory. We need to add a capacity that's not just about what's happening right now, but about what might happen next.
And that key is something called adaptivity. This isn't just about surviving moment to moment. It's about actively managing your state to stay far away from the cliff edge of non-existence. Think about a tightrope walker. They're not just, on the rope. They're constantly making tiny adjustments with that pole, right? They're anticipating a wobble before it even happens, all to stay safely in the middle. That is adaptivity.
And this is a total game changer. Why? Because it allows the system to actually evaluate what might happen, to recognize that one path leads toward danger while another leads toward safety. And right there, that's the origin of value. For the very first time, the system has a concrete reason to treat some situations as good and others as bad.
Okay, and this is where it gets really, really cool. As scientists were building out this enhanced theory, let's call it Autopoiesis Plus, they started to notice something incredible. It was lining up almost perfectly with a totally separate but really powerful theory of the brain coming out of neuroscience.
Now, that other big idea is the free energy principle, or FEP. The FEP basically says that your brain is a prediction machine. That's its main job. It's always building a model of the world, making guesses about what's going to happen next, and then acting to make those guesses come true. And think about it, minimizing surprise is just another way of saying you're minimizing uncertainty. And that's a very good strategy for staying alive, right?
Just look at how beautifully these two ideas mirror each other. What one theory calls maintaining viability far from its limits, the other calls minimizing free energy. Future-oriented regulation becomes active inference. They're using totally different words, different vocabularies, but they're pointing to the exact same fundamental drive. Act now to make sure you're safe in the future. How amazing is that? Two completely different fields of science landing on the same deep underlying principle.
So, what's the big takeaway from this incredible convergence? Well, it hands us a powerful new tool to tackle one of the oldest mysteries there is. Where does meaning come from?
And that brings us to this idea of sense-making. See, meaning isn't something that's just out there in the world, waiting for us to find it. No, it's something an organism actively creates.
An encounter with food isn't just a random physical event. For the organism, it's intrinsically good because it helps it stay far from that cliff edge. A predator isn't just a collection of matter, it's intrinsically bad. Meaning, at its very core, is grounded in the fundamental nitty-gritty business of staying alive.
Okay, but there's a really important point to make here. When we talk about the brain as an inference machine, or say it uses models, we don't necessarily mean there's a little supercomputer running complex simulations inside your head. As the philosopher Andy Clark points out, these inferences can be purely physical things. A simple light-sensing cell in your eye is physically built. It's tuned to respond to light. Its very structure is the assumption about the world. No complex thought needed at all.
So let's pull all this together. When we put all these powerful pieces on the table, what's the big picture that starts to emerge? What emerges is a really profound idea. Life and mind, maybe they aren't two different things after all. Maybe they're just 2 points on a single continuous spectrum. Cognition, thinking, feeling, perceiving, isn't some kind of magic that got sprinkled on top of life. It's simply a super sophisticated, highly evolved strategy for doing what the simplest life forms have been doing all along, adaptively managing things to stay in the game.
So this grand synthesis isn't just about tying up some loose ends in a theory. It does something much bigger. It completely reframes how we see ourselves. And it leaves us with this final, powerful question. If the deepest roots of our minds, our thoughts, our emotions, even our art, are all sophisticated echoes of a basic biological drive to simply keep going, what does that truly say about who and what we are?